Amen, amen, amen. All right, amen, amen. I have the third word, third stand of Christ. We are coming from John 19, 26 through 27. I'll be reading from the NIV version. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to her, "Woman, here is your son." And to the disciple, "Here is your mother." From that time on, this disciple took her into his home. Amen. With the time I am allotted, I wanted to title this Easter speech, God is the great provider. God is the great provider. Amen. Amen. Jehovah Jireh is a Hebrew name for God, meaning the Lord will provide, or the Lord our provider. Originating from Genesis 22, when God provided a ram for Abraham to sacrifice instead of his son Isaac. This signifies God's foresight, God's perfect timing, and God is active in providing all of our needs. Amen. Amen. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is Exodus 3 and 14, when Moses asked God who he should say sent him to the Israelites. God responds, "I am who I am." God says to Moses, "Tell the Israelites, I am has sent you." It can also be translated as, "I will be whatever you need me to be." To this is a promise from God. This is a promise of God that says he is active in our lives. Amen. Amen. Brothers and sisters, throughout my life's journey, I've discovered that in my most despairing and hopeless moments, God's unwavering presence is active, and he will be what I need him to be in the season I am in. I say he will be exactly what I need him to be in the season I am in. When I was homeless, living in my car all alone, God became Jehovah Shammah, the Lord is present. When I felt like my life was crashing all around me and everything was so chaotic, he became Jehovah Shalom, Lord is my peace. When I had COVID and the doctor told my wife I was going to die, God, you became Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. When I lost my little brother to the streets and depression took over my life, God, you became Jehovah Nachem, God of my comfort. When I felt like the world was against me and I just couldn't fight anymore, God, you became Jehovah Nisi, the God who protects and the God who fights my battles. Whatever season you are in, God will be the great I am, and he will provide all of your needs. Amen. 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 Such is the chronicle here in John 19. It is an example of God, the great provider. Amen. Amen. We see Jesus on the cross of Calvary. He has endured shame and disgrace at the hands of the chief priests. The disdain comment from the crooks and the loud condescending voices from the crowd. And even with this atrocious, horrible, and demeaning moment on the cross, Jesus continued to endure. Jesus continued to tolerate. Jesus continued to bear the suffering to provide salvation for the whole entire world. Amen. Amen. While shouldering this burden, verse 25 says, he looks at the foot of the cross and he sees his mother. I can see Mary. I'm a son, so I can see Mary. I can see Mary overwhelmed with grief. I can see Mary saturated with sadness as she sees her son up on that rugged cross. The one who she miraculously birthed into this world is now facing a gruesome death. And during this moment, Mary is worried about her own livelihood, because now her son is gone, and according to Bible scholars, Jesus' earthly father has already passed away. Amen? Amen. This leaves Mary in a strange and unfamiliar place, because Mary is left to wonder how my life is going to be after he was gone. My husband is gone, and now my son is gone, and at least when her husband died, she had her son to provide for her physical needs, and now her son is gone, so she is left to wonder, what am I going to do? It is at this time when Jesus says, "Mama, I got you." Amen. Amen. Jesus sees his mother and the disciple who he loved, and takes care of his mother's worry by providing a new familiar family structure, and he told Mary these words. Look at John, that is your son. John, look at Mary, that is your mother. Church, it is at this moment that we see God is the great provider. If you are in Jesus Christ, we are part of a community of believers. We are family, and you are never alone. Amen. Amen. Before Jesus bowed his head in the locks of his shoulders, before Jesus secured our salvation and gave up the ghost, he made sure he took care of his mama. Amen. Amen. Because Jesus understood family takes care of each other. Amen. Amen. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I am glad I am in the family of God, and he will provide for you. Amen. But when I read the Bible, when we read the Bible, we can see John 19 scattered throughout the whole Bible. Amen. 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 When we see our Father always providing for his children in every book of the Bible. Amen. Amen. We see God in Psalm 23 providing light for David when he walked through the shadow of the valley of the shadow of death. We can see God in Daniel providing AC for the 3 Hebrew boys. We see God providing a pillow and a comforter for Daniel in the lion's den. We see God providing shelter and peace for the disciples in the middle of the storm. We see in Matthew, we see Jesus taking 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, feed over 5,000 people, and had leftovers. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, our God is not a deadbeat dad. Amen? Amen, amen.
That's all right. Can we give it up for all 3 of these ministers? Amen. That's amazing. Amen. And all our excitement, we kind of forgot the welcome. Amen. So Pastor Jones, we're